The day. Some interesting news on the heroin epidemic front, and he wanted to come on and talk about a new story. Sunil, how you doing?
I'm good, McGraw. How are you?
Good. Thanks for checking in, and thanks for thinking of us on this story. First, let's start with how are things on the front lines in terms of the heroin epidemic in the region? Anything new to report?
You know, the sad part is that, we're seeing the nation has seen 127 overdose deaths a day. It has now surpassed homicides and car accident deaths in the U.S. So that's the bad news. The good news is on the local front and the national front, the federal government and our Department of Mental Health here in Missouri are overly proactive, being innovative around solutions to the epidemic. But kind of the newest thing that we talked about the other day, McGraw, is we've always talked a lot about compliance of medications when we're struggling with an addictive disorder or mental health. And a lot of for mental health, we have schizophrenia medications and those things, which have always been in injectables. You and I have talked a lot about a medication called Vivitrol, which is the injectable version of naltrexone.
Right.
Part of its success has been it's a 30-day shot. Patients are protected. The ambivalence of saying, I need my substance because I'm depressed, because I'm anxious, because I'm feeling different than I should. I'm more in my survival mode than in the thriving mode still. Was a huge revolution for the industry. But the hot topic lately has really been a medication called Suboxone. It's the frontline defense for those who are struggling with opiates. It's a very accessible medication because it can be prescribed out of a doctor's office pending they have the proper waiver, unlike methadone, which is something that's prescribed out of a clinic. But there's been a lot of fear in the community about, and you've heard my father, Percy, talk about, there's a lot of fear about diversion. So I use it as a home detoxing agent. When mom and dad are home Monday through Friday, I take my Suboxone. They go out of town for vacation. Saturday and Sunday I use. And when I start feeling sick again, I'll take my Suboxone. We've been able to put really effective accountability structures in place, as I said, in collaboration with the Department of Mental Health and their support. But the newest kind of introduction lately is that there's now going to be an injectable version, a monthly injectable version of Suboxone. It's going to be called Sublocade, and we think it's going to be able to hit the market. It's received FDA approval, and we think it'll hit the market in sometime in February, and this is really a huge step forward.
Okay, so
for the field.
to the layman, so Suboxone has been kind of like the Nicorette gum. I'll chew the Nicorette gum when I'm at work, and then I'll smoke the cigarette when I'm home. You're saying that this new drug that is now FDA approved, which is getting so much attention, which is why you're on the show, is like Nicorette gum that will last all month. So the Suboxone will last all month, so you will not have the urge to use when you go home?
For some people, yes, and we're not saying for everyone that when they take Suboxone they use it as a detoxing agent. But
Right.
Part of the disease and part of the illness is that there are days when we struggle to be emotionally healthy, and there are days where we say, you know what, it's just easier if I go back to my substance for whatever reason.
Right.
And as we've always talked about, no one's ever come to ARCA and said, Sunil, my goal 10 years ago was to be using heroin.
Right.
It starts because I had pain and the doctor wrote me something. I am depressed. I'm anxious, part of my story. And so the difference is that it'll be for providers, patients, families, loved ones, it'll be one less step in the getting well process that we have to worry about now, because if a patient's put on this, they're going to feel comfortable. They're going to be safe. They're going to be protected at some level from overdose. They can be able to focus on really, which is we still know is crucial, is that behavioral component that changes the psychosocial component. But the introduction should bring a lot of relief and will bring a lot of relief to both providers, patients, and families because of the lack of compliance issue and the possible diversion issue.
So the fact that it was approved by the FDA, does that mean it's available now, or when will you be able to use this?
Well, from what we understand, we're looking probably sometime early February. And that will be the monthly version. And then there is a probably 6 to 8 months to follow. They're looking at putting in a every 2-week injection. So just depending on provider and patient decision, some may be able to get 2 weeks to a month. But either way, going to be a huge, huge step forward in really promoting the medication, allowing its use, seeing huge rise in efficacy, I think, from patients being able to receive that.
Because, and you're the expert here, and I know just enough to be dangerous, but you've often said that you use Suboxone at the beginning of rehab, and then you transition into the naltrexone, right? That's what you've done in the past.
And that's what ARCA is a huge proponent of naltrexone and Vivitrol, but I also think as the heroin epidemic and the opioid epidemic becomes worse and more intense, not just locally but throughout the nation, Suboxone has to be the first line of defense in terms of allowing people to be stabilized, to feel healthy, to come back to life. And one of the things the research is showing is that in a controlled environment, and for those who have strong accountability structures, I'm able to go to grandma and grandpa's for 6 days when I come off Suboxone before I get on Vivitrol, because there's a grace period that you transition to. We've seen that part of, there's kind of a saying going around right now that if you're dead, you can't get into treatment. And so the concept has been that we're seeing the mortality rates and higher retention in treatment with longer term and longer use Suboxone. So it's not, it's at this point, because of the potency, the frequency, the intensity of the drug, the game plan and the goal is to say we have to eliminate use. But as I said, Vivitrol and naltrexone are still phenomenal drugs. We recommend that to a lot of patients. But the tide is turning a little bit in terms of the research showing longer-term Suboxone use is highly effective in saving lives.
Interesting. Sunil, while we have you from ARCA, there was a story, was it yesterday, the other day, that said that some of these drugs, the fentanyl, some of them are so potent that, did I read correctly that some of these drugs aren't having the effects that they had in the past?
In terms of a more more intense effect.
Yeah, the Narcan isn't as working as well because these drugs are much more potent.
Correct. So we want to make sure that people are concerned that Narcan doesn't work for these drugs that are potent. They do, but that is correct. You may need a higher level of Narcan because the drugs are so potent. You're also seeing things in McGraw, we talked about them, where first responders are passing out. I mean, they're inhaling the fumes of these things. We've got something now called carfentanil. It's essentially a tranquilizer. So the drugs are being cut, and you're seeing almost pure fentanyl that's now being able to be synthetically made, being pumped in. Heroin's getting cut with fentanyl, carfentanil. And so it is, it's a little bit scary that maybe the average dose of naloxone to wake someone up from an overdose or to revive them, you may need a little bit more of an intense overdose. And one of the big pushes being made right now nationally and again at the local level by treatment centers, physicians, the Department of Mental Health, is really the distribution of Narcan. We are encouraging the community, bar owners, obviously first responders, families, lay people, yourself, me, to be armed with this. We never know when we're going to be. The reality, McGraw, is you don't know when you're going to be at a party. You're going to be at a holiday party, an event, coming out of a restaurant, and someone literally overdoses in front of us. And at this point, every one of us has the chance and at some level the obligation, if we are trained and if we understand the seriousness of the epidemic, to potentially have the opportunity to save a life.
Go back for a second. You say first responders are responding to these people, and the fumes of the fentanyl is having an adverse effect on the first responders?
Yeah, so there was two stories. That one came out of St. Louis, a couple that have come out of Ohio, that first responders have come up and they haven't used or anything, but they'll have spoons that are still kind of being lit, and there's fumes. But the fumes of this fentanyl and carfentanil are so intense and powerful that, most things are measured in milligrams. Fentanyl is measured in micrograms. I mean, it's that much more potent than anything else. And so first responders are coming up. Now you'll see even Ohio is being hit one of the hardest states in the country. a lot of these first responders are coming up with masks on their face, like when you're in the hospital and you have a cough and they say, put the mask on.
Right.
So they're not inhaling these fumes because they're so intense.
All right, Sunil Menzies, how's your dad doing?
He's well. He's, continues the mission to make sure we get the word out that, treatment is available, that there is hope beyond this, and that people get well. So he's, one day at a time, but he's well.
There's a special place in heaven for your father. ARCAMidwest.com is the website to find out more, ARCAMidwest.com. Sunil, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.